Hello, love. It's Mila. I'm so glad you're here. And I wish I could ease you in gently, but some stories don't wait for the perfect moment. They crash into your life like a wave that doesn't care whether you're ready or not. So here's how it started. My sister said, "You're too toxic," right after handing me the mug I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. The one that said "Best Sister Ever" in fading pink script. I hadn't even taken a sip before her words turned the coffee bitter in my mouth. She stood there, arms crossed, jaw set like stone, and I realized she meant it. She wasn't just blowing off steam or speaking in one of her melodramatic flourishes. No, she was cutting me out. I didn't say anything. Not because I had nothing to say, but because for once in my life, I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of watching me scramble to explain myself. So I left. Just like that. Walked out of her too-clean kitchen, past the pictures of her kids I hadn't seen in months, and out the front door. I remember the way the wind hit my face, sharp and sudden, like the slap her words hadn't delivered. I didn't cry. Not then. I got in my car, turned off my phone, and drove until the sun started to sink behind a row of unfamiliar hills. She didn't call. Not that night. Not the next day. Not all week. I sat with the silence like an old, bitter friend. I cooked for one. I folded laundry that didn't smell like anyone but me. I stared at photos I should have taken down a long time ago. And I wondered, deep down, if maybe I was toxic. If maybe I was the common denominator in every broken thing. Then, on the 7th day, right when I'd gotten used to the quiet, my phone rang. It was her. Her name flashed across the screen like it had 1,000 times before, but this time it brought no comfort. I let it ring once, twice, and then I answered. Her voice was thin, frantic. "Mila, please. Something's wrong with Dad. I don't know what to do." There it was. The tether. The thing that would pull me back in. Not because I was ready. Not because I had forgiven her. But because family doesn't come with return policies. You love them, even when it hurts. Even when they call you toxic one week and beg for your help the next. I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my coat, shoved my keys into my bag, and drove straight into the storm I thought I'd finally escaped. Because I knew in the marrow of my bones that this wasn't just a family emergency. It was something deeper. Something she hadn't told me yet. And I was about to find out exactly what she'd been hiding. The sky broke open just as I pulled off the highway. Not with rain, no, not yet, but with that eerie, weightless hush that always comes before it. The kind that makes birds disappear and leaves hang still in the trees. Like the world was holding its breath. I hadn't seen my sister's house in nearly 3 months. Funny, considering we used to call each other every day, sometimes more than once. But after Mom passed and Dad started slipping, things between us shifted. Grief makes people strange. It curls them inward, makes them sharp. And I'd become her target. She said I was too emotional, that I made everything about me, that I twisted things. But here she was calling me in a panic when the one parent we had left started unraveling in her hands. I parked on the curb. Her porch light flickered like it was deciding whether to stay on. When I knocked, she didn't answer right away. I heard her before I saw her, her footsteps frantic, her breath uneven. When the door finally opened, it hit me how different she looked. Hair pulled back like she hadn't brushed it in days. Eyes swollen. Lips cracked. "You came," she whispered. I nodded. Didn't step forward. Didn't smile. "You said it was Dad." She looked over her shoulder like someone was following her, then opened the door wider. "He's in the guest room. He won't come out." I stepped inside. The house smelled off. Not foul. Just stale. Like no one had opened a window in a while. Like worry had settled into the walls. "When did it start?" I asked. She bit her lip. "About a week ago." He stopped answering my questions. Started staring off. "He won't eat anything I cook. Keeps locking the door." "Did you call the doctor?" She hesitated. "No. He said he didn't want one." "Soph," I said softly. "That's not how this works." "I know," she said quickly. "I know that. He said if I called anyone, he'd leave." I blinked. "Leave?" She nodded. "He packed a bag. Said he didn't want to stay here anymore. Said the house didn't feel right. And now he's just quiet, like he's waiting for something. I walked toward the guest room, stopped halfway down the hall. And why me? Why no? She didn't answer at first, just stared at me with those tired, sea-glass eyes of hers. The same ones I'd grown up looking into across bunk beds and bathroom mirrors. Because he's asking for you, she said. That landed differently. I hadn't lived at home in over a decade, hadn't been his favorite in even longer. But apparently now, when he was unraveling, he wanted me. I knocked on the guest room door, lightly at first, then again. Dad? It's Milla. No answer. I turned the knob. Locked. He hasn't come out since Monday, Sophie said behind me. I tried everything. That's when I noticed it, something wedged under the door. A folded piece of paper. I bent down slowly, heart kicking up behind my ribs, and pulled it out. Just 4 words. Scrawled in his unmistakable handwriting, shaky but urgent. Don't trust your sister. The breath caught in my throat. I stood up, paper still in hand. Sophie was watching me. What is it? She asked, her voice clipped, eyes wide. I shook my head. Nothing. She stared for a long second, then turned and walked away. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I'd come here to save, or who needed saving from whom. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the living room couch, fully dressed, eyes fixed on the ceiling as the storm finally arrived, soft at first, then louder, tapping at the windows like it had a secret to tell. Sophie had offered me the guest room, as if that was an option. As if I could sleep a wall away from him after what I'd read. Don't trust your sister. The sentence ran laps through my head over and over, like a child's song turned sinister. I didn't tell her. Not yet. I tucked the note into my coat pocket while she wasn't looking. Said he hadn't responded. She believed me. Or pretended to. By midnight, I couldn't take the waiting. I crept down the hallway barefoot, quiet, careful. The carpet muffled my steps as I stopped outside his door. I pressed my ear to it. Silence. Not even the creak of a bed. Not the scrape of a chair. Just the storm outside. I crouched down, tried the knob again. Still locked. I felt around the doorframe. Nothing. But the note. That note hadn't slipped itself under the door. He'd been moving. Thinking. Watching. Suddenly the door swung open from the inside. And there he was. My father. Standing in the dark, wearing the same old sweater he always wore in winter, even though the house was warm. His face was thinner than I remembered, hollow in the cheeks, stubble along his jaw. His eyes, once sharp, calculating, looked frightened. Milla, he whispered. His voice sounded like someone had drained the air out of him. I stood slowly. Dad. He opened the door wider. Come in, please. I stepped inside. The room was cold. The window had been open all night, and the curtains flapped in the wind like slow-moving ghosts. The lamp on the desk was on, casting yellow light across a mess of paper. And maps. Dozens of them. Tacked to the wall, spread across the bed. All the same, old city zoning diagrams, neighborhoods from 40 years ago, with one block circled in red. Our childhood street. The house we grew up in. Dad, what is this? He pulled the door shut behind me. Locked it. I flinched at the click. They don't want me to remember, he said. But I do. And I know Sophie doesn't want you to remember either. I stared at him. Remember what? He walked over to the bed, picked up a folder, and handed it to me. His hand shook. Start here. I opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings, so old the paper had gone yellow. Police reports. Hospital logs. Some of the names were blacked out, but one name wasn't. Our mother's. And one date appeared over and over. March 2nd, 1999. I swallowed. What is this? He pointed to the map. This was buried. But I never forgot. I buried her on March 2nd. In the garden. I blinked. You mean her ashes? I thought. He shook his head violently. No, not her ashes. I mean her. The real story. What really happened. And they covered it up. All of them. Even Sophie. I stared at him, my mouth dry. That doesn't make sense. Mom died in hospice. I was there. No, he said. You think you were. You were only there the day before. She died in the house, not in hospice. Sophie told everyone else it was different, said it was cleaner that way. The folder slipped in my hands. I didn't understand at first, he continued, rambling now. I believed what they told me. I thought I was confused, but I started remembering. The maps help. The notes. I wrote it all down before I forget again. You need to read it. I took a shaky step back. Why are you telling me now? His eyes found mine. Because I don't know how long I'll have. My mind, it's going. And your sister's waiting for it to be gone, so she can finish what she started. I couldn't breathe. What did she start, Dad? He looked down, then whispered. She made me sign it. The papers. I think she's trying to take the house. The money. Everything. My heart cracked open in my chest. He looked up at me, almost childlike. You always told the truth, even when it hurt. That's why I need you now. There was a knock at the door. A soft, familiar knock. Milla? Sophie's voice. Are you in there? We both froze. The storm raged outside. I turned to him. Don't say anything. But it was too late. He was already crying. Milla, she said again, closer now. Open the door. I stood still, the folder still in my hand. I didn't move, because I realized, for the first time in years, I no longer knew which one of them I believed. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. I stood there, heart pounding in my throat, while Sophie's voice slipped through the cracks in the wood, too calm, too measured, like she was rehearsing. Milla, please. I just want to talk. I looked at Dad. He was trembling now, hands wringing the hem of his old sweater like it might unravel the truth faster. I wanted to believe him. I did. But his eyes, they weren't the same. Sometimes he looked right through me. And that folder, the documents, the maps, the wild, looping notes, all of it felt like falling down stairs in slow motion. I wasn't sure if I'd landed on something solid or if the ground was still moving beneath me. Milla, come on, Sophie said again. This is ridiculous. Dad stepped back, away from the door. He whispered, don't let her in. I stared at the knob. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I locked it again from the inside. The silence that followed was instant. Then, slowly, I heard her steps retreat. I exhaled. But that was the moment I knew I wasn't a guest here anymore. I was a threat. And Sophie knew it. I sat on the bed while Dad flipped through his notes, looking for something. His fingers moved with the urgency of someone trying to catch water in his hands. She forged the documents, he said. The power of attorney, the healthcare proxy, even the deed. It's in the envelope here, this one. He handed it to me. The signature looked like his, but the lines were wrong, just slightly. I remembered how he always looped his G like a musical note. This one was straight. Clean. Too clean. Why would she do this? He looked at me with so much pain in his eyes I had to look away. Because she was always afraid you'd come back. That didn't make sense. But she asked me to come. She called. He hesitated. Then, in a voice that sounded like sandpaper on wood, he said, because I wouldn't stop asking for you. Every day, I kept saying your name, and I think it scared her. I looked down at the file again. There was an old photo tucked into the back, me, Sophie, and Mom. A birthday party, maybe. Balloons in the background. My arm around Sophie's shoulder, her mouth mid-laugh. A flash of something inside me cracked. She loved me, I whispered. Dad said nothing. She wouldn't do this. He said nothing. I sat there, folding and unfolding the edge of the file, until I couldn't stay in that room any longer. I needed air. I slipped out while Dad was distracted. Tiptoed down the hallway, past the living room. Sophie wasn't there. Her purse was gone. I checked the driveway. Her car was gone too. For a second, I stood there in the silence of her house. My sister's perfect little home with the tidy shelves and framed memories. And all I could think was, what the hell is going on? Then I saw the mail on the counter. A stack of envelopes, haphazardly shoved into a wire basket. Most were junk. A catalog. A late water bill. A letter from a law office downtown. That one stopped me. It was addressed to Graham Whitaker, our father. I opened it. My hands were shaking. Inside was a court notice. Hearing scheduled for next Tuesday. Petition for conservatorship. Filed by Sophie Whitaker. I dropped the letter like it burned. She was going to take everything. Not just the money. His voice. His rights. His life. And she hadn't told me. She'd called me to witness it. To smooth it over. Maybe even to get me on her side before he could say anything. I staggered back against the counter, my mind spinning. Then I heard it. From down the hallway. A voice. Dad's voice. Milla. I ran. Back to the guest room. The door was wide open. He was standing there, pale, breathless, pointing out the window. She's outside. I rushed over. And there she was. Sophie. In the backyard. On the phone. Pacing. She hadn't left at all. She'd been watching. Waiting. Dad was panting now, trying to speak. She told them I was violent. She said I was dangerous. That I was seeing things. They're going to put me in a home, Milla. And she'll keep everything. I grabbed his hand. She's not going to do anything. We'll fight this. He looked at me, tears in his eyes. She already filed. I know, I said. I saw the papers. And then, his voice barely a whisper, he said, there's one more thing. He led me to the hallway closet, pulled out an old shoebox, buried beneath winter coats and unopened Christmas decorations. Inside, an envelope marked for Milla if anything happens. I opened it slowly, and what I found inside made my legs go numb, because it wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about control. It was about what happened to Mom. And what Sophie never wanted me to find. The envelope was thick. Not with money, not with keepsakes, but with photocopies, documents, photographs, letters. And as I sifted through them, one by one, the story that Sophie had spent 2 decades burying began to rise like a ghost from the floorboards. The first page was a medical report, Mom's, from March 1st, 1999. It listed a stage of decline far more advanced than any of us had been told. Late-stage symptoms. Non-responsive. But I remembered her differently. I remembered her humming to herself. I remembered her telling me about a dream she had the night before. That had been February 28th. The second page was a prescription. Morphine. Dated March 2nd. Not from her doctor. It was from Sophie. She'd been a nursing student back then, only a few semesters in, but she had access to what most didn't. And somehow she'd written a dose. A dose that would have been enough to. I couldn't breathe. Dad, I said. What is this? He sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, the weight of the truth pressing down on his shoulders. She told me it was mercy, he said. That Mom was in pain. That the doctors were dragging it out for money. That it was kinder this way. The words lodged in my throat. You knew? No, not at first. I believed her. She told me the paperwork was done, that it was all approved, that hospice was already involved. But it wasn't. He looked at me, and I swear I saw a piece of him break open. She did it without anyone's permission. And then she made me lie. I blinked hard. The funeral. The cremation. He nodded. All rushed, he said. No autopsy. No second opinions. Just ashes in an urn and a story wrapped in grief. My hands were shaking. All these years. All the silence. All the ways Sophie had pushed me away every time I asked questions about that week. I'd blamed myself for being late, for not being there in Mom's final moments. But I hadn't missed it. I'd been kept from it. And now Sophie was trying to do it again, rewrite the truth, take control of our father the same way she had taken control of our mother's end. Dad reached for my hand. I didn't know how to stop her. And now I'm too tired. No, I said, suddenly cold. You're not. Not yet. I took the shoebox and the folder and went to the guest room desk. Spread everything out. It was all here. The morphine prescription, the medical notes, the power of attorney Sophie had made him sign last fall while he was recovering from surgery, probably medicated. And the conservatorship petition. And one more thing, an old letter from Mom. Dated 3 weeks before she died. Dear Milla, I know your sister and I haven't been close lately. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I pushed too hard. But there's something I want you to remember, even if I'm not here to say it in person. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like the difficult one for asking the right questions. You always see through the masks. It's your gift. Don't let it become your burden. Love, Mom. I stared at her handwriting, my vision blurring. I wasn't the one who made everything messy. I wasn't the one who twisted things. I had just asked too many questions. That had always been my crime. And Sophie had built an entire world to punish me for it. I was still standing there when the front door slammed shut. Heavy footsteps on the hallway floor. Mila? Her voice again. Tighter this time. Louder. Where are you? Dad looked at me with panic in his eyes. Don't let her take me. I moved fast. Locked the guest room door. Stuffed the papers into my bag. Grabbed my phone and dialed the one person I hadn't spoken to in years. Uncle Will. Mom's brother. A lawyer. The black sheep of the family. Sophie hated him. When he answered, I didn't even say hello. I just said I need help. It's about Dad. And Mom. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Then he said, Mila, listen to me carefully. Get out of that house. Right now. I can't, I said. She's in the hallway. There was a bang on the door. Mila, open the damn door. I pressed the phone to my ear. She's filed for conservatorship, I whispered. She forged medical reports. She lied about Mom. I have proof. Uncle Will's voice changed. Sharper now. Focused. I'll get a judge by morning. But you need to keep that folder safe. If she gets it. Bang. The door rattled. Open it. Dad was shaking. She's going to call the police. Let her, I thought. Let the whole world come. I turned to him. Can you walk? He nodded, barely. Then we're leaving. I opened the window. Cold air poured in. Sophie was shouting now, threatening to break the door. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't a child in her shadow. I was Mila. And I had finally remembered what my mother always knew. The truth doesn't stay buried. It just waits. We left through the window. Not gracefully. Not quietly. But we left. Dad climbed out first, his steps unsure but determined. I followed with the folder pressed tight to my chest, the truth rustling against my ribs like wings. The night was cold, and wet leaves slicked the grass, but I didn't care. The wind smelled like freedom and firewood and change. We walked 3 houses down to Mrs. Calder's place, the neighbor who'd known us since we were kids. She opened the door without questions. Let us in. Made tea without asking how we took it. Sat us down in her living room and wrapped us in silence like a blanket. And I waited for dawn. Uncle Will arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Softer around the middle. But his eyes were the same, sharp and unsparing. I handed him everything. He didn't say much as he flipped through the pages. Just shook his head once, slowly, and murmured, Jesus, Sophie. By noon, we were at the courthouse. By 2, the judge had reviewed the emergency petition. And by 4, Sophie had been legally barred from managing Dad's care. Just like that. Except it wasn't just like that, was it? It was 20 years of silence. 20 years of swallowing discomfort and smiling through things I knew weren't right. 20 years of being called too much every time I raised my voice or asked for the full story. The judge didn't ask for drama. Just evidence. Dates. Signatures. Timelines. And the paper, so long ignored, so carefully buried, did what the screaming never could. It told the truth. Sophie didn't come to the hearing. She sent a lawyer who looked uncomfortable reading her lies aloud. The court froze the assets, halted the conservatorship, and granted me temporary authority over Dad's medical decisions. When we stepped outside, the sun was low in the sky, brushing gold across the courthouse steps. Uncle Will squeezed my shoulder. You saved him, you know. I shook my head. No, I just listened. Finally, Dad was quiet on the ride home. But when I pulled into the driveway of my apartment, our apartment, now he looked at me with tired, grateful eyes and said, She was always afraid of your strength. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That night, I made us grilled cheese the way Mom used to, buttered edges, cheddar, and tomato. We ate on the couch with blankets over our knees, the TV quietly humming some late-night movie neither of us were really watching. And for the first time in months, maybe years, the house felt safe. He fell asleep before I did, and I sat there in the half-dark, sipping lukewarm tea, holding the letter from Mom in my lap. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like the difficult one for asking the right questions. I thought about that line, about how many women I knew who'd been called difficult when they were just paying attention. And I thought about Sophie. I don't know if she started out cruel. I think maybe she started out scared. The kind of scared that turns into control, that calcifies into certainty, that eventually wraps itself in self-righteousness and calls it love. I haven't heard from her since, and I don't know if I will, but I know this. She doesn't get to write the ending. Not this time. So here's the ending I choose. Dad lives with me now. We take walks when the weather allows it. Sometimes he remembers everything. Sometimes he forgets where his socks are. But we laugh more. We cry too. And we talk about Mom. Honestly, for the first time. The maps, the reports, the pills, they're locked away in a drawer, labeled not evidence, but history. Because I'm not carrying them anymore. Not on my back. Not in my heart. And if you've ever been called toxic for holding a mirror up to someone's silence, if you've ever been told to calm down when all you did was ask for the truth, I hope you remember this. You're not the problem. You're the one who kept the light on when everyone else was rearranging the shadows. You're the one who knew the difference between love and control. And you're the one who dared to ask what really happened, even when no one wanted the answer. And that takes strength. It takes more than strength. It takes you. This is the last part. Thank you for walking through this with me.